Hello friends, I am Saurodeep. So let's begin our first class for the GenAI core series. So in today's class, you will see what are the difference between AI, machine learning, deep learning and GenAI. So we need to know these four terminologies and what are the use case for these four before moving into the core GenAI concepts. So in today's class, we will see what is AI, what are its use case, what is the difference between AI, ML, deep learning and generative AI. We will see one small system design idea of AI and GenAI. Then we will see some real world engineering, like what are the use case for this AI, ML, deep learning and GenAI. And then we will see small coding example that will replicate the AI and machine learning system. Before jumping into the theoretical concepts, let me show you some differences. Then you will understand it a little bit more better. Okay, so what is AI? So as a simple rule, AI is nothing, just in a problem, if you add some logic to solve that problem, that is AI. That's it, nothing more than that. So what is it? Let's say if you want to turn on your AC if the temperature is more than 30 degrees Celsius. So what you will do? You will write some logic, right? If temperature greater than 30 degrees Celsius, turn on the AC. Or if there is some words that you wanted to mark it as spam, you will give in an array, you will add some word, right? Some word, for example, spam email will contain word like you have owned something, you have owned lottery prize, like that. So you have trained in an array, you have added lottery, win. If any of the email contains this type of word, it will be marked as spam. So it's a simple logic. So whenever we are giving some instruction, that is basically AI. So as a normal view, just learn, whenever there is some problem that you wanted to solve, along with that, you are giving some logic to solve that problem. This is nothing but an AI. This is the simple definition, friend. So this is the AI. Now, what is machine learning? So along with the AI, whenever we give some training data and some pattern learning, it will become a machine learning. So along with AI, if we add some pattern learning. So what is it from pattern learning? I'll tell you in a little bit. And some training data. With some training data, it will become a machine learning. So AI plus pattern plus data, and that is trained with some algorithm. So there will be some algorithm trained. Then it will become a machine learning. So what does this mean? So let's suppose we have this type of input. If we give input as 1, we are getting output as 1. If we are giving input as 2, we are getting output as 4. If we are giving input as 3, we are getting output as 9. If we are giving input as 4, we are getting output as 16. So this is the data, friend, and see there is some pattern, right? 1 square is 1, 2 square is 4, 3 square is 9 and 4 square is 16. Now if I give what will be the output of 5, then how it will recognize? So basically this is the training data. So I have trained the machine learning with some data, right? And then the machine learning will predict what is the pattern between this input and output. So what is the relation between this input and output, friend? So let's say input is X and output is Y. So is there any relationship between input and output? Yes, there is a relationship. So basically the output is basically the square of the input, right? Square of input is the output. So this is the pattern this machine learning will predict, and how it will predict this pattern based on the algorithm in which it was trained. So it will recognize the pattern from the data. And then whenever we give some input, let's say 5, for inference to get the output, based on this pattern, it will give us the output as 25. So this is the process of ML, friend. So, and how this training phase will occur? So basically, the data, whatever the data is there, let's say this is the data. So the data is again divided into two sections. First one is the training data. That is contains the 80%. And then we have the testing data, which comprise of 20%. So what does this mean, friend? Let's say in this 1, 2, 3, 4, the training data is 1, 2, 3. Okay, I have trained the model with these 3 data. And then for the testing data, I am using 4. So to check if I am getting the desired output or not. If I give 4 and in the testing data and I know the output that it will should give 16, then let's say suppose the machine learning model is giving me 16 output. So if both the output matches, then we are giving some label to it. Yeah, it's a perfect result or it's not a perfect result. It needs to be retrained again. So like this, we are giving some label or score for the response. Then that response will generate, do we need to again train the model or not? After all these things, friend, then we need to give our input and check the output. So this data will be going for training. So after the training, it will go to the model. Then the model will predict what will the relation between the input and output. Okay, basically the pattern. So this is basically X square. It will decide the pattern. Then on the model, you will give some input to check if now this is giving the correct output or not. So here we are giving the input. So what is the input, friend? 5. And then, so this is known as inference. Okay, if we are checking the model is giving the right response or not, then it will give me an output. If the output varies, friend, again we need to do what? Then again this data, whatever the output is there, it will go for the training phase again. Again the model will check if the data and the pattern, and then again it will try to give some output. So here we will give some label, is it a good or bad, like that, or some score. Based on that we will retrain it again. Now another thing, friend, this machine learning, there are 2 types of machine learning. One is statistical machine learning and another one is deep learning. So what is statistical machine learning? So whenever we are giving this data in a tabular format, that is the statistical machine learning. For example, this input, we have some defined pattern, we have some defined data. This is statistical. And what is deep learning, friend? If the input is not fixed, okay, there is no structure in the data like audio, video, images. For those type of scenario, we will go for deep learning. Statistical machine learning basically follows the linear regression, random forest, XGBoost for the algorithm, whereas deep learning follows the neural network, transformer architecture to generate the output. What is deep learning then, friend? So along with machine learning, if we add some neural network, so neural network is nothing, friend, it's just like a brain. Okay, as human has brain, so neural network will act like a brain for the AI system. Since it now needs to compute unstructured data like image, video, so it needs an extra brain to perform that action. So now this will become deep learning. Then on the top of deep learning, if we add some generative training, okay, so how to generate the text, those things, it will become the GenAI. It will become the GenAI. So I hope you understood this, friend. So how we are progressing from AI to GenAI. So now let's go to some theory topic now. So what is AI now? AI is basically refers to the simulation of human intelligence processed by machine. Okay, so whatever the machine doing the task, done by the human based on some logic, that is basically AI. So AI system can analyze data, learn from it, and make decision or perform action based on that data, as we have already said. Now this is some example of GenAI. This is specifically in language learning, where we can use for language correction, we can use for spam detection, all these type of things we can use for AI system. Then what is machine learning, friend? So as I have seen, machine learning basically it learns patterns from data. We give some data, based on the data input and output, it will learn the pattern. What is the output pattern based on the input? So instead of writing rules, which is in AI, we give data to the model, and the model will predict based on the pattern what will be the output. So here are some examples, friends, for the stock data. Let's say we have given stock data as input. So there are some few machine learning techniques. Let's say there is one technique known as regression. So based on this technique, we can predict what will be the stock price. Let's say the email text. So machine learning technique we use for classification. Let's say the email, we have trained the model, or we have given the model, let's say thousands or lakhs of email, and then we do some classification. If the email contains some word, it will be spam email. If that email doesn't contain those type of words, it will be not classified as spam email. So based on that, we have classified the email, and then what will be the output, friend? Based on this classification, we can generate one spam detection system. So what is deep learning? Deep learning is transforming the way machine learning understand, learn, and interact with complex data. So here complex data means image, audio, video. Deep learning mimics neural network of the human brain, as I already told. So deep learning uses neural network which acts like a human brain, and it enables computer to autonomously uncover patterns and make informed decisions from vast amount of unstructured data. And what is GenAI? So instead of predicting labels, so labels mean, friends, whatever the output the model is giving, if the output is correct or not, we are adding some label, right? So it will, the GenAI will not depend on the label. So it will generate some new content for that. So that is basically the GenAI. So generate text, we use ChatGPT as model. To generate image, we use DALL-E, Midjourney model. To generate code, we use Copilot, Corpus as model. So this is the structure, friend. So artificial intelligence is the top layer. So artificial intelligence is what? Whenever we are adding some rules and logic, that is artificial intelligence. So on AI, if we add some training data and pattern learning, it will become machine learning. So machine learning basically learns the system pattern. Then on the machine learning, if we add neural network, multiple layers like deep structure and large data, we come to deep learning. So deep learning learns complex patterns and from unstructured data. Then on deep learning, if we add generative objective, like to create, not to classify, sequence modeling for text, images, and massive data set plus computing power, it becomes generative AI. So in the generative AI, friend, we have this LLM. Basically, there are different LLMs, that is large language model. So here we have trained the model with very huge amount of corpus or data, images, and many other things. So that is the LLM. And one that type of LLM is ChatGPT, right? Here we can also give Gemini, Claude, everything. So what is the core idea then, friend? AI will act like a smart machine. Machine learning will basically learn from data. Deep learning, here machine learning will use brain-like network to compute unstructured data or complex data. And in GenAI, it will create new content. So example like YouTube recommendation, AI system, spam filters, we use machine learning. Face recognition, we use deep learning, because face recognition means friend, it will need to detect the face, image, or from a video. So it's an unstructured data, we'll go for deep learning. To generate a chatbot or like ChatGPT like concept, we'll go for GenAI. So here is a system design idea, friend, a basic system design. In basic AI system, what will happen? User will give input. The input will go to the model and it will perform some logic, and then it will give us the output. But in GenAI system, user will give prompt. So what is prompt? whatever we are typing in the chat GPT, that is prompt. That will go for prompt processing. So what is prompt processing? Because along with the prompt that user has given, we need to add some few extra context. For example, what is the role, what will be the temperature, what will be the topic, based on which we can control the response. So we need to process that prompt, and then we need to send that to the LLM API. So the LLM API can be of anything. It can be of GPT, it can be of Google Gemini, it can be of Claude, anything. And that LLM will generate the response for us. So now friends, let's see some basic coding related concept to understand this more better. For the AI system, see, it's a rule based AI. If we pass some message, okay, and we need to classify, is this a spam or not? How to classify? Here, see friend, we have already created one spam keywords. Basically, we have told the model that if you use any of these word in the email, mark it as spam. So here we are looping to the every keyword in the spam keyword and checking if that word is present in the message or not. If that word is present in the message, then it's a spam. Let's say that my email is like this. Hooray, you have won an iPhone. So this is like a spam email, right friend? These are type of fraud email that we get. So since it has this word own, so it will be detected as spam by the AI. See, here we are just doing some checking, friend. As I told, we have given some logic and some instruction to check. Then comes the simple ML like logic. Here what we need to do, here we need to train, right? See, we have trained something that what are the positive words and what are negative words. So based on the whole data, we have given some more data to train. Then we are giving some score. Okay, score is basically like the label. Then I am checking if the message contain any word that is a positive words, then we are increasing the score. And if the message contains any word that is containing in the negative words, it will decrease the score. And then finally, we are checking the score. If score is greater than 0, that means it's a positive word. If score is less than 0, then that's a negative word or a negative sentiment, or else it's a neutral sentiment. So here what's friend, we are segregating the data and we have given some trained data. Okay, and based on this trained data, it will predict the output. And for the GenAI friend, so basically this is the prompt that user will give from the UI. Then based on the prompt, we have seen we need to do some prompt processing. So this is the prompt processing friend, where we need to add the model, we need to add some role, we need to add the temperature and max tokens. So this is basically to generate the response and to control the response. We will see about these things in our later section, but for now understand this is for to control the response. If the response will be under some limit, and for cost cutting, all of this we use this prompt control. Then this LLM will give us some response, and that will contain the content of the response, that will generate a new content for that. So this is the basic coding example friend. I hope you have understood the basic difference between all the four. In our next class, we will see what are tokens and deep dive into those things. Till now, happy learning friend. Thank you.